Hi, it's William Dudley with my trade book assignment for TE 933, Teaching Reading. Warning, I select a book that does have some strong language, which might be included in this review. So the book I chose is The Hate U Give. It's a young adult novel by, the author is Angie Thomas. It has been still in hardback. I don't know, it's a best-selling novel at the moment. It has actually been made into a motion picture and has gotten numerous positive reviews. One review called it an important and timely novel that reflects the world today's teens inhabit, and it boldly tackles topics like racism, gangs, police violence, and interracial dating. The narrator and main character is Star. There she is. A 16-year-old African-American girl who lives in two worlds. So her home is an impoverished, gray, black neighborhood that has gangs and crime, but the author also takes pains to portray as a community that's close-knit and nurturing nonetheless. The second world is a fancy prep school where Star is pretty much one of the only black students there. And so a constant sub-theme in this book is how these two worlds differ and how Star behaves differently in them, how she navigates between these two worlds. These two worlds then collide when early in the book she witnesses the shooting of her childhood friend by a white police officer. So this shooting is covered in the media, and the victim is kind of portrayed as a drug-dealing thug, which is something her white friends pick up on. The shooting inspires activists to organize street protests and ultimately law enforcement to crack down on her neighborhood, with tanks creating a war zone. So it kind of involves her personally as she has to decide whether she wants to testify before the grand jury. Can she trust the police? How can she trust, or how she talks about this with her black friends and her white friends? So the novel explores how all these events affect her relationships with her family and friends in both worlds. And I really liked how the author portrays Star's family and how we learn more about her family as the novel goes along. So the book touches on numerous issues related to history and social studies. The criminal justice system and the police, racism and how it affects human perceptions and interactions, schools, how schools differ in different neighborhoods, or even how neighborhoods differ, kind of a geography question, trauma, how people cope with trauma, surviving deaths of friends, the media, probably inspire a lesson or a discussion on critically reading media accounts of events. One of the most interesting things to me is comparing and contrast with the two worlds, the African American and the white culture. Even the title, The Hate U Give, spelled with the letter U, that's actually taken from a lyric from hip-hop pioneer Tupac. The hate you give, fucks little infants everywhere, which anagrams into thug life. So, possible essay prompt, but it's also cultural knowledge that I suspect many African Americans already know, but I didn't know that until I read this book. So, this book might be of a special interest if you have a diverse class with students from different backgrounds, and see if students pick up different things from the book from each other. So I would recommend this book in general as something students could benefit from, and a good supplemental text for classes that deal with the topics I mentioned before. Extra credit book reports or book club discussions. It is kind of long. It's like 450 pages. I'm not sure how practical it is to assign it as classroom reading by itself. Chapter 2 is relatively short and stands on its own. That's the chapter that depicts the actual police shooting. And there might be a good classroom text to be used with other texts if you have a lesson plan that deals with especially this topic of the police and the issue of police shootings, especially against black males. There is some strong language, and as before, and it's pretty realistic. It has allusions to drug use and sexual activity and gangs. Not much really happens on screen, as it were, except the shooting death of her friend. That does happen on screen. But it's a realistic book. I believe it's based on reality of what the life realities that many students face. So I read the whole book. It was engrossing read. Overall, I would recommend this as a worthy addition to a social studies teacher library and a possible resource for lessons on several different social studies topics. And as for the movie, I still have to see it before I pass judgment on that. All right, again, The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. Good book.